Well, hello there. You amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. You're looking absolutely amazing. You must be having a good weekend. I hope the sun is shining. It's been shining here. Yesterday was a bit mental. I've got a bit burnt. My head look a little bit like a tomato. But anyway, let's get straight into the meat and potatoes. As look, we know that we're kind of waiting on tenterhooks now for is Hippler going to delay this trial. I don't at this stage think he will. He's taken it on advisement, and we know what that basically means. It's like when you've got children, or when you were children and you asked your parents for something, and it was like that fob off. You might get to do this, or you might get to do that. Yeah, not likely. But yes, we are waiting. We're waiting for it to be put in the documents to be set in stone. But obviously, with the hearing and him basically making the statement that be prepared, we're likely to be going to trial as planned. It's had a bit of a knock-on effect, and by knock-on effect, I mean the Goncalves Army have spoken after a few days of the Goncalves family being quiet, which it does seem, having looked that they've been through a few different bits and pieces. Obviously, we've had Kaylee's birthday, which I can appreciate. They drive me insane, the family do, but at the end of the day, they've lost a child. It was her birthday recently, so they've had to make their way through that and navigate that and other issues with the family as well. But they put out a post, which you saw in the thumbnail, which we're going to have a look at here, and just look at some of the responses to it. This was the post itself. Let me just get that out of the bloody way. The post itself. So, Judge Hippler, I would tell you that it's likely that you're going to trial on the date that's been indicated, #August 11th. And yes, obviously, it's they have had some comments. They've had some comments to say about it. And look, the reason why I'm doing this is because, I've been, and maybe you've been, affectionately called a ProBurger, someone who is seemingly on Brian Kohberger's side. And I'd like to say that it ain't just about that, right? I'm not a ProBurger as such. Thought I was struggling to see. Your glasses in there. Look. I'm not a ProBurger. What I am is someone who wants the system to act fair, to be fair, for the justice to be the right justice. And some people will turn around and say, well, you ProBurgers, you ignore this, you ignore that, you ignore the other. And I've openly said, look, the Amazon purchase of the K-bar knife, for instance, and a sharpening tool, potentially a sheath, would be damning. My issue is with that is we haven't heard the rebuttal from it. We've heard nothing about it. Now, if they, through the trial, absolutely beyond a reasonable doubt prove that he bought one and bought all of the implements that were used in this crime, and consequently he now can't say where they are, and they seemingly have vanished off the face of the planet with no chain of custody to them, then that to me is an incredibly damning piece of information. But as it stands at the moment, we haven't got to the trial, and therefore we've got to hear the other side of the argument. And I seriously doubt that Ann Taylor at this stage will have shot all of the bullets in her gun, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? I think that she would be holding back, and there'll be some things that she's going to do in the trial itself. But so we don't really ignore a lot. Like, people talk about the knife sheath left at the scene of the crime. I don't ignore the fact that we are told that there is a knife sheath left at the scene of the crime, and that knife sheath apparently had Brian Kohberger's DNA on it. My query is the convoluted way in which that they would go on to obtain Brian Kohberger's DNA through a cross-country adventure up into the Poconos Mountains, and go to Brian Kohberger's house and rummage through the trash, and then do this genetic genealogy and the family tree, and then they would have no work product to back it up, just the FBI given a name, and everyone from Payne to Riley Nolan seemingly want to distance themselves from it and say, "Look, we never said it was his DNA. We were just given a name," and went ahead with that. Do you know what I mean? I don't ignore the fact that it exists. I question the information around it. No different than the car. I don't question that they've said that there is a white Hyundai Elantra outside this property. My issue with that information is that I haven't yet seen a piece of footage or a picture that would conclude to me that that's Brian Koberger's car. Yeah, I wouldn't, and there's lots of questions around it. And then when you have, and again, I mentioned Cyray for the umpteenth time, he's turning around suggesting the use of a Stingray. We have 3,800 phones being dragnet, and Brian Koberger's information seemingly being suggested that it doesn't exist, while previously in the original, now deemed irrelevant PCA, they seemed to suggest that they knew exactly where he was and used that clever verbiage about being in the vicinity of a tower that provides coverage to within 100 meters of 1122 King Road, and relying upon stupidity and the lack of ability to listen fully to manipulate the public and condition them into believing certain things. But let's have a look and see how that's going over at the G family headquarters. So, bearing in mind that these messages are off the back end of Judge Hippler suggesting, "I'm not delaying, we're going ahead as planned." So, I love that. I was like, mic drop, bam. I love Judge Hippler. He isn't putting up with the Ann Taylor shenanigans. What shenanigans? You'll see I've commented in here. And so we have a look. She has taken defense attorney shenanigans to a whole new level I have never seen before. Makes me feel physically ill at times listening to the lengths she will go to. What lengths? Someone did put Johnny O'Neill. Jennifer Brownlee, what the fuck are you talking about? The prosecution is the problem. You do know they are the source of the leaks, and the defense has filed 23 times for the discovery that prosecution doesn't want them to have. Stop your lies. You might as well be on the prosecution. Which, fair point. Good one, Johnny. And it says another positive in the great argument that was made on the prosecution side about how Ann Taylor made no provision in her argument about some proposed timeline of what would be an appropriate proposed timeline of when she would be ready, or what would be the right timeline to accommodate the media issues and news coverage and interest. We all know her answer would be never, and that's why there was no timeline proposed, which is where my comment came in a second. Hippler is done with her shenanigans. Justice for Ethan, Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana is coming. And it says, I think this is probably my comment in here, and I put Jennifer Brownlee, because Ann Taylor literally says the delay timeline would be up to the court, not her. She's stating that delay is appropriate given the circumstances, but the length of the delay is not her job to determine. It's the court's. And I just put, why is it so hard for some people to listen and understand very basic facts around this case? Someone else put, she's doing her job. If she doesn't get a fair trial, he could get out of it on a technicality later. You should applaud her for being thorough, which is a good point. And it says she's been trying to drag this case since it started. Wanted another venue, she got it. No, she. It's not that she wanted another venue. They looked at, again, what was out in the public eye and the effect that was likely to have on Brian and his ability to obtain a fair trial. And it was deemed by Edelman that wasn't likely to happen there. So it wasn't that she wanted it. It needed to be moved. And lo and behold, we're now in this situation now where we're staring down the barrel of more stuff that's being put out, and then stuff like this. And this is going to be proof by the time we've finished. I'm not going to read all of them, but by the time we've finished reading what we read, you will show absolutely the damage that the media coverage has done and what it's done in terms of conditioning people. So let's have a look. Keith's gone on about BK's rights. What about the four innocent people's rights? Well, regardless of whether you don't like the fact he's got rights, that's his constitutional rights. That if you're an American citizen, you fucking share. He's got the same rights as what you have. You have a right to a fair trial. You have the right to be able to answer to your accusers. Do you know what I mean? And these people are just like, nah, he's been accused, not proven guilty or anything. We'll ignore anything. And he shouldn't have any rights. Fuck his rights. I pray that none of these people ever find themselves in a position where they are accused or someone that they love is accused, and that person that they love has said, look, I didn't do it, I'm being accused. Well, I wonder if they'd have the same mentality then. Well, fuck your rights. Let's jump straight to the firing squad. Fucking idiots. I would not applaud Ann Taylor for nothing. She's a pitter, smirking all the time, and it's her smirking all the time. Her smirking all the time. And I'll tell you what has caused this. These are the stills, photographs that media put out that show Ann Taylor in conversation with Brian. And that's where this comes from, because in terms of in court hearings, these people haven't watched the court hearings or listened to them, because there's no fucking smirking in there. In fact, the only person who smirks in there is Ashley Jennings. Do you know what I mean? Or Hippler when he's saying something or doing something under his breath or holding his fucking head on like a head wobbler. All the time having a co-lawyer. BK's sitting there. He knows what's going on. Nothing wrong with him. He's guilty. His DNA says it all. So again, we're back into the realms of their conclusion is because they've been told that DNA is there, he did it. While simultaneously ignoring the fact that there wasn't just his DNA there. And when I say there wasn't just his DNA there, it's questionable whether his DNA was there because of the aforementioned convoluted story of what it took to put it there. But we do know that there was other DNA there. So why is it just that his DNA is important then, if we're going to go down the route of it was there, but the other DNA isn't important? Why is that not important? Do you know what I mean? It's insanity. It's absolute insanity. Someone did put the DNA's total BS off Johnny again. And it says, Johnny O'Neill, not according to the police, I take it you are not police officer. And he was stalking Maddie and brought the knife and balaclava. He's playing with the judge, the system, and his lawyer. And Taylor keeps dragging this out because she took on another case. Well, her tactics didn't work this time. Bet she wished she never changed the original venue now. Her blonde hair and smirks didn't win this time. If the judge leaves it, it will be another 100 years till she sorted herself out. The only thing that I kind of agree with there is the fact there potentially could have been more that she could have done to speed the process along. She wants to dig into everything. And she did take on another death penalty case. We don't know the absolute reasons behind that. But yes, you could be questioned over that. Certainly, I have to agree with that. And then we get to this. DoorDash affirmatively stated, I saw Brian there. Jennen stated Dylan is the only living eyewitness. Who's lying? And then they get into this debate here. Maybe neither. I don't know if the story about DoorDash driver seeing Koberger face is true. But Jennen specifically used the word living, which would only make sense if she was referring to the people who were inside the house. How do you get that from that? When the documentation literally says that Dylan Mortensen is the only living person who they believe has seen this person who committed this atrocity. They're now trying to twist it like, no, she just meant inside the house. So they're definitely the person outside the house. Being a witness who didn't live there and was outside the house. It could also be that she meant she saw his car there but couldn't see who was driving. Someone put the DoorDash driver is not credible. Judge may drop death penalty. No, she said the only living witness, meaning the other ones are deceased. Yeah. Not sure what I believe. I believe that meth head also. Where does she park? Did the killer just park in front of her? Seems a bit brazen. I would have thought he'd park in the back or something. Yeah, which we've covered all this about the time frames and things like that. I was smiling, tired of all the bullshit. Finally, this trial has been delayed long enough. P.S. An innocent person would want to get the trial started to prove they're innocent. Notice that not one member of the defendant's family has declared his innocence, nor has the defendant said, I'm innocent, I didn't do this. He did straight from the start. Literally straight from the start, he said that he would be eager to be exonerated. They've got his phone. They'll be able to find out that I'm nothing to do with this. And then subsequently, he stood silent. That standing silent is a person's way. Bearing in mind his what he specialises in, the area that he's studying, and that is about saying, I'm not acknowledging this. This is fucking ludicrous. I'm not even going to give you the satisfaction of answering your question. And he has remained composed the entire time, just steadfast. Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't want to be in the position that he's in, but he's in it, and there's fuck all he can do about it. No matter what he does, what he says, how he thinks, what he thinks. He's in the process, and he's got to go through the system. That's as simple as that. Amen, justice coming. Praying for justice, Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana. I do hope they get justice, but the way this is going, I just don't know. Judge Hippler plays no games. Love you all so much. Big congratulations to your family and others. Sending love and strength for the trial. Yes, and BK is not guilty. That wound him up off the clock somewhat. Why are you here then? Think that monster is not guilty, you need to leave. So very firmly set in the fact that they believe that he's guilty. He did it, the whole lot. It's clear as day is innocent. Watch the Linda Lane footage and dumpster guy. Farley and the Aryans have motive. Brian isn't even capable of this mentally or physically. Why aren't you people calling for the testing of the unknown blood DNA and glove on the handrail? You know DNA that you can't make up. How is it that not tested in this bit of a crime, big of a crime? How are time and advance reports missing for Brian? Justice is investigating all the evidence instead of lying and fabricating it. I like this, Johnny. Don't perhaps agree on how he's saying everything, but he's raising some good points. How can you, again, put so much grounding on the DNA that you've been told is Brian Kohberger's DNA, despite all of the things around it, but then you don't want the other DNA at the scene to be given the same scrutiny? I don't get it. Someone else put, he may be, but he deserves a fair trial. Not sure that is possible at this point. I don't know if it's me, but every time I hear the attorney talk, she says the same thing over and over, and it's very annoying. It's like she doesn't know what she's doing. And then no more games. Let's go, fam. Fucking there's a pattern that it was consistently being forced that it was Ann Taylor's fault, that the court had been delayed, the trial had been delayed, all of these things and the issues. Look, at the end of the day, if the prosecution had a strong case, they went to Ann Taylor and went, there's everything. That's what we're bringing for your boy. We'd probably have had the trial by now. And in hindsight, if we would have been in a position where this would have gone to a preliminary hearing, we probably wouldn't be here now, because they'd have never got it this far. And that's why we're this far down the track with 20-odd, mid-20s of requests for discovery. If there'd have been a preliminary hearing, we wouldn't be here now, because Brian Kohberger wouldn't have been sitting in court. Ask yourself why. Look, I'm not a pro-burger. I am a pro-rights. I'm a person who wants this situation to come to fruition with those that deserve justice to get justice. And just ticking a box and throwing someone in a cage because he just makes the most sense. What did I say yesterday? The convenient outsider. Who knows? Love you all.